The 9th of April, 1940. Under the code name Operation Weserübung, Nazi Germany invades Denmark and Norway. Strategically, Denmark's importance to Germany is as a staging area for operations in Norway. In Norway, Germany ceased to secure naval bases for use against the British fleet in the North Sea, and to guarantee vital iron ore shipments from neutral Sweden, on which Nazi Germany is dependent. While invasion of Denmark lasts less than 6 hours, and is the shortest military campaign conducted by the Germans during the war, Norway surrenders to Germany only after 2 months, on the 10th of June, 1940. During the German occupation of Norway, the Gestapo, the Nazi secret police, plays a key role in maintaining control and terrorizing the local population. Of the Norwegians who support a Norwegian far-right political party, the National Samling, relatively few are active collaborators. The most notorious of these is a man who leads a group of informants who infiltrate the Norwegian resistance, hence managing to capture and murder many of its members. His name is Henry Rinnan. Henry Oliver Rinnan, one of 8 children of a shoemaker, was born on the 14th of May 1915 in the Norwegian town of Levanger. Though his family was poor and times were hard in the 1920s and 30s, there was always food on the table at the Rinnans' home, as Henry's grandparents on both sides had farms. At school, Rinnan got slightly above average grades, and classmates later recalled that there was nothing negative to say about him and he was a likable guy. Even Rinnan's teachers did not remember him ever misbehaving at school. Initially, Rinnan worked in his cousin's sports shop until he sold a pair of gloves and put the money in his own pocket, which was discovered when the customer returned and wanted to exchange the gloves. Rinnan was sacked the same day. He and his wife Clara, with whom he eventually had 3 children, ended up on the dole and were not allowed to keep any furniture other than their bed. Rinnan was then employed as a car salesman in Trondheim, and while Clara was at the clinic having their first child, their son Ruar, Rinnan went on a trip with another woman and only returned after 2 weeks. This time too, he was fired for not keeping appointments, and then worked as a truck driver for a while. Though Henry Rinnan was unusually short for a Norwegian man at 159 centimeters or 5'3" in length, he was described as confident, vain, and charming. The Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939 with a German invasion of Poland. During the Winter War, which was fought between the 30th of November 1939 and the 13th of March 1940, Rinnan tried to enlist with the Finns to fight against the Soviet Union, but was rejected due to his poor physique, as the army rejected people with dentures, and Rinnan had dentures in his upper mouth. The German invasion of Norway began on the 9th of April 1940, and 2 months later, on the 10th of June 1940, Norway fell to Germany. During the invasion, Rinnan drove a truck for the Norwegian army. Following the invasion, a diverse range of resistance activities emerged, including both organized groups and spontaneous civilian efforts. One of the most prominent organizations was Milorg, the military branch of the Norwegian resistance, which coordinated armed resistance and sabotage operations. Milorg's activities ranged from intelligence gathering and smuggling supplies to conducting guerrilla warfare and executing targeted sabotage missions against German infrastructure. Civilian efforts also played a significant role, engaging in non-violent resistance such as spreading underground newspapers, organizing strikes, and maintaining communication with the exiled Norwegian government in London. The Norwegian resistance worked closely with the British Special Operations Executive, the SOE, an organization that supported local resistance movements and helped them conduct espionage and sabotage against Axis powers. Notable operations included the heavy water sabotage at the Vemork plant, which hindered German efforts to develop nuclear weapons. The resistance also assisted in the escape of Jews and other persecuted individuals from Norway to neutral Sweden. Despite facing severe repression, including arrests, torture, and executions by the Gestapo, the Norwegian resistance remained resilient. Their efforts significantly disrupted German operations, contributed to Allied intelligence, and bolstered national morale, ultimately playing a vital role in Norway's liberation. However, Henry Rinnan chose to fight for the Germans, and according to his later testimony, he was recruited by the Gestapo, the Nazi secret police, in June 1940. In the fall of 1941, he infiltrated the leftist resistance movement in Trondheim under the cover name Fiskvik. Between 50 and 60 people were arrested. Until the end of 1941, he worked mainly alone as an agent. In January 1942, Henry Rinnan recruited 3 agents for his operations. At the beginning, the members of Rinnan's unit were involved in intelligence and infiltration. The group, which later consisted of around 50 to 60 Norwegian informants, was known as Sonderabteilung Lola, meaning the Special Unit Lola, or after the war as the Rinnan Gang, as they all worked for Henry Rinnan. Rinnan worked closely with the German security police in Trondheim, where his main contacts were German officers Walter Gemmeche and Gerhard Flesch, a commander of the security service and security police in Trondheim. Rinnan is said to have been very impressed by Flesch, both as a tall, handsome man with a great uniform and the power he had to decide over life and death in his district. Flesch usually listened to Rinnan's advice when the Gestapo planned an operation and is said to have personally tortured prisoners in Rinnan's presence. The Rinnan group was not formally a part of the Nazi Party Intelligence Service, the SD, until 1943, when Rinnan received a formal position within the occupation. Before this, he had reported on people in the resistance to Flesch and Gemmeche, so that these people were arrested, tortured, and possibly killed, or put in concentration camps. From 1943, however, their activities were expanded to include torture, murder, and military action. From September 1943, the group had a base at Jonsvansveien 46 in Trondheim, which after the war became known as Gang Cloister. This base was equipped with cells and torture chambers in the basement, where several were killed under torture. The members of the Sonderabteilung Lola infiltrated the resistance movement by engaging people in conversation on buses, trains, in cafes, and other public places, encouraging them to talk about their attitudes toward the Nazi occupation. Having identified people who they thought were in the resistance, Rinnan's agents worked to build trust with them and penetrate their networks. The Rinnan Gang set up fake resistance groups whose members believed they were working for the right side, while in reality, the groups were controlled by Rinnan, who was working for the Germans. These kinds of infiltration operations to expedite action and subsequently arrest the suspects were called provocation business. Rinnan even called this a game in the negative sector. Rinnan operated with impunity and almost no interference from his German taskmasters, often using murder and torture as sanctioned means. It is estimated that this led to several hundred people being tortured and more than 80 people being killed. Internally, Henry Rinnan also maintained strict order, and when rules were broken, Rinnan himself acted as judge and executioner. When he became aware that his informant, Kitty Grande, had fallen in love with a resistance fighter, he arranged for her to be arrested by the security police in December 1942 and sent to the Grini concentration camp. Attempts to liquidate Rinnan, who used a variety of aliases, were made several times, but none of them worked out. The Rinnan Gang was not known to the vast majority of Norwegians, including the members of the National Samling Party, until after the war. In April 1945, less than 2 weeks before the liberation, Henry Rinnan killed 2 gang members, Mari Arents and Bjorn Bjornebo. The reason was that Rinnan was interested in Arents, who however became engaged to Bjornebo, and when he learned that they planned to escape to Sweden to get away from him, Rinnan had them killed. After Germany's capitulation in May 1945, Rinnan made a hopeless escape with helpers and hostages. His men put on German soldiers' uniforms under their outer clothing in order to be able to mix with soldiers who were to be sent home to Germany. However, on the 15th of May, they were found by Norwegian police troops and arrested. Rinnan's briefcase contained a huge amount of money and a butcher's gun. Rinnan's girlfriend at the time, who was never a gang member or an active agent, had an abortion in prison and wanted nothing to do with him. On Christmas Eve 1945, Rinnan escaped from prison, allegedly with the intention of fleeing to the Soviet Union and working for Soviet intelligence, but was caught after about 1.5 hours when he sought refuge in vain, with a known communist in Trondheim. Because Rinnan was afraid to meet the people outside the Mission Hotel when he was transferred to the prison there and refused to get out of the car, the guards had to pull him out. Although it was early in the morning, a number of spectators had gathered, and one of the spectators snuck under the police cordon and punched Rinnan in the face to great cheers from those present. For Rinnan, it would get only worse. While imprisoned, Rinnan was beaten and abused on several occasions and attended the first interrogations with a swollen face. He was also subjected to mock executions. In the first year of peace, the treason police in Trondheim investigated 2,394 treason and war crimes cases, and the vast majority were related to the Rinnan Gang. It is believed that Sonderabteilung Lola was responsible for the deaths of 83 people, and they were responsible for at least 1,000 cases of severe torture, and that the group contributed to around 1,000 Norwegians being sent to German concentration camps. Rinnan himself worked closely with the National Treason Police by pointing out former German members of the Gestapo who had hidden among the Wehrmacht soldiers. On several occasions, he let them pass, so that for several minutes they thought they were on their way to freedom, before he called them back. On the 20th of September 1946, 12 members of the Sonderabteilung Lola were sentenced to death. One of them was Henry Rinnan, who was, among other things, convicted of 13 murders, but the real number may have been higher. His execution took place on the 1st of February 1947. The 31-year-old Rinnan was taken from his cell in Kristiansten Fortress in Trondheim, and a guard blindfolded him and led him outside, where he was tied to a pole. Rinnan showed no emotion. Then, at 4:05 a.m., the firing squad shot Rinnan in the temple at close range. Afterward, he was cremated, and the urn containing Rinnan's ashes was placed in an unmarked grave. Rinnan's widow, Clara, met Rinnan in prison just before his execution, solely because the prison chaplain urged her to do so. She was arrested on the 1st of May 1945, but released on the 30th of July with a duty to report to the police 3 times a week. By June 1947, she had taken back her maiden name, Baglemo, and moved to Levanger, where no one recognized her. Here she remarried, moved to Nittedal and had a son, while her 3 children she had with Rinnan had to remain in Trondheim and live with the consequences of their father's actions. When asked why she didn't take them with her, she replied, "I had more than enough on my own." Rinnan's son, Ruar, who changed his name to Ruar Baglemo, was prosecuted for his father's actions. He grew up with his grandmother and later moved to Sweden. There were no tears shed for Henry Rinnan.
Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.